Fiona took her ex-husband and child back to our home country. In the wedding car, she pushed me out without hesitation. Her tone calm. You take a cab to the wedding venue first. Samuel got lost at the airport. The child is mine. He and his son are my lifelong responsibilities. I'll look after him until I find my next destination. I hoarsely asked her, what about me? She looked at me, eyes firm. You're my true love and future. The next second, she shut the car door. Hundreds of wedding cars followed her off into the distance. Wearing my suit, I stood by the roadside, crying and laughing like an idiot. Looking at my phone, flashing with familiar numbers, I wiped away my tears and answered. A woman's voice, slightly aggrieved. Jason, I joked about crashing the wedding, and you got scared and didn't come. I replied calmly, no need to crash it. Let's get married. I went to the mall, bought clothes to change into, and threw my groom's suit into a trash can. My phone had dozens of missed calls from parents and friends, but only a few messages from Fiona, each stabbing my heart. Jason, I couldn't reach you. I temporarily had Samuel act as the groom. I never had a wedding with him, so this will make it up to him. Be sure to thank Samuel. He's a grown man taking care of a child. It was really hard for him to finish the ceremony with me. Oh, and I'm taking Samuel home first, taking care of him. Oh no, finding the big child some support. He's my ex-husband. I can't just cut off my responsibility for him. You wouldn't want me to be heartless, right? I stared at the screen, a bitter smile on my lips. Yes, she is indeed a woman full of loyalty and care. But that loyalty was always only for Samuel. After Samuel's girlfriend passed away, she took an overnight flight to the US to mourn. I couldn't understand, but to her it was natural. Jason, he's my ex-husband after all. Even if there's no love, there's familial affection. He needs me now. And what for? The 12,000-kilometer journey was to bring that child back under a legitimate reason, claiming it was their shared responsibility. It felt like an invisible hand was squeezing my heart. I looked up, blinking hard to stop the tears. I'd made my decision. Go home, pack my things, and leave this absurd situation behind. As I opened the front door, Samuel was in the kitchen, wearing an apron, busy setting the table. When he saw me, he greeted me like he owned the place. You must be Jason. Let's just call each other brothers from now on. Come sit. Dinner's ready. Fiona stood behind him, naturally helping him out of his apron, her fingers lingering at his waist. I told you we have a maid. You shouldn't be cooking when taking care of a kid. Samuel lowered his head, wiping the corners of his eyes. But you love my cooking. You look so thin since you got back home. Quickly, Fiona wiped his tears with care. All right. With you taking care of me, I'll be back to my good shape in no time. Then, she turned to me with a smile. Jason, come taste Samuel's cooking. I tell you, I missed this taste for 2 years. Staring at her familiar demeanor, I suddenly understood. What she missed wasn't the food, but the person who made it. No wonder she lost appetite whenever I cooked. It wasn't that the meals were off, but that even her stomach only craved Samuel's touch. My heart filled with an aching bitterness. I walked straight to the bedroom. I'm tired. I need rest. Samuel, taken aback, blinked in confusion, tears quickly welling up. Fiona, does Jason not like me? As expected, Fiona couldn't stand him being upset. Her face darkened at once. Stop right there. Samuel already went through so much standing in for you today as the groom, and even cooked dinner. Yet you can't even say thanks and are giving him attitude? Thanks? I laughed bitterly. You dumped me mid-route to pick him up. Had him as a stand-in groom at our wedding. Now you're all lovey-dovey in front of me, even with a kid. Fiona, why don't you just go be with him and stop pretending to care about me? I've explained about the wedding. Fiona suddenly raised her voice. Bringing up the past now, are you trying to embarrass Samuel? Quickly, Samuel came over to hold my hand. Jason, Fiona and I have been together for so long. We regard each other as family. I didn't pay attention to these things. Even though there's a child now, I have no feelings for him at all. Otherwise, why would we have gotten divorced in the first place? Before I could respond, he turned, feigning a relaxed look at Fiona. I didn't think Jason would mind our past so much. Maybe I should move out? When we divorced, I promised not to disrupt your life. You can come visit us occasionally. Just remember the child support. He sat down with a forced smile, picking up the pair of couple bowls we had, stuffing white rice into his mouth. But tears kept falling, wiped hastily with his sleeve. Choking, he spoke. Rest assured, Jason. I'll leave as soon as I finish eating. I don't mind staying at a hotel. Before he finished, he started coughing violently, sobbing heart-wrenchingly. Baby, I'm sorry. Daddy's new uncle doesn't like us. Daddy can't give you a complete home. Fiona rushed over, wrapping her arms around him, soothing him gently. Looking up at me, her eyes were full of blame and disgust. Jason, what do you want? To push Samuel to the brink? I ignored her, turning to head upstairs. Fiona relentlessly followed, blocking my way. Frustrated, she ruffled her hair. Samuel and I are only family. There's nothing romantic. Why do you keep holding on? Family? I sneered. Do relatives have kids together? Fiona, do you think I'm that naive? With her brows knitted, she reluctantly explained. When Samuel's ex-girlfriend passed, he almost did too. I agreed to help raise this child to give him the will to live. Suddenly, she grabbed my wrist. Jason, your family has been doctors for generations, full of compassion and skill. You wouldn't be cold-hearted and leave someone to die, would you? Just think of it as saving Samuel's life and let this go. Okay? Compassion and skill? I broke free from her grasp, laughing sarcastically. I'm cold-hearted, all right? I want to watch him suffer. If he's miserable, maybe you won't pine for him. A slap landed hard on my face. Fiona was breathing heavily, her eyes red with anger. If anything happens to him, you'll pay for it with your life. My right cheek was stinging, but it wasn't nearly as painful as the ache in my heart. In 5 years, she had never laid a hand on me. But when it came to Samuel, the poised and graceful Fiona turned into someone so violent. I felt a little defeated. Fiona, you've hit and cursed me. Let's just break up. We haven't even registered our marriage, and the vows at the wedding weren't made to me. It's all a joke. She seemed stunned for a moment, then hugged me tightly. Jason, come on, don't be like this. I know the marriage certificate issue bothers you. We'll get it in a few days. Okay? Samuel won't stay here forever. Once he finds his place, he'll move out 2 years max, trust me. He's handsome, good-natured, lots of women like him. It won't be hard for him to find someone. I cut her off coldly. No need to look. You're so concerned about him. You're the best choice for him. You're already the child's mother. She froze, pulling away sharply, a mocking smile on her lips. You think you're the only one for me? Weren't you the one begging to marry me? I lowered my head, muttering, yeah, I had it coming. Our arranged marriage was my grandmother's idea. My dad had saved Fiona's grandmother on the operating table 20 years ago. Though my dad jokingly agreed, he never took it seriously. He always told me, my precious son should marry the one he loves. Yet I stubbornly fell for Fiona. 3 years ago, she went to the US for a degree and married the gentle but strong-willed and poor Samuel in Las Vegas. When I found out, I immediately suggested canceling the engagement. But she knelt before me, teary-eyed, pleading, Jason, I only love you. I've divorced him. Please, forgive me this once. I softened then and forgave her. Serves me right. Fiona, Jason's still young and a bit clueless. You need to be more accommodating. Not like me, I've long gotten used to being the humble one. Samuel stood at the door with his suitcase, forcing a smile and waving at us. I'm off. No need to see me out. Get the hell out. Fiona suddenly shouted, shoving me aside to chase after him. I stumbled and fell hard down the stairs, pain searing through me, fading my vision to black. My limbs and head throbbed with sharp agony. But Fiona just stepped over me, without so much as a glance. She grabbed Samuel from behind, her voice trembling. Samuel, where can you go with your child here, knowing nobody? Are you trying to drive me mad? Samuel wiped his tears stubbornly, forcing a smile. I can take care of myself. If all else fails, plenty of women out there might take us in. I won't allow it. Fiona snapped angrily, pulling him back into the house. As they walked past, Samuel feigned concern. Should I call Calvin for Jason? He looks pretty hurt. Fiona glanced coldly at me curled on the floor, her voice indifferent. No need. He's a doctor. He can handle himself. It was the housekeeper who couldn't bear it and called for an ambulance. When I woke, it was the next day. The room was empty except for a message from Fiona on my phone. Sorry, I thought you were faking. Going to the child's checkup with Samuel today. We'll see you tomorrow. I called the housekeeper, asking him to send my necessary documents home. I wasn't going back to that place. A nurse came in with a CT scan, hesitated. Jason, you'll need to stay for observation with this mild concussion. I heard you just got married yesterday. How did this happen? Got hit by a mad dog. I replied with a dry smile. No kidding. Fiona's behavior around Samuel was like a guard dog protecting its bone. Pushing past the sting in my heart, I assured my parents I was fine. Scrolling through social media, I saw Samuel's newly posted photo set from the wedding. 8 pictures of sweet moments with Fiona, centered around a rose sprinkled with morning dew. Captioned, "Love isn't what you say, it's what you do." I gave it a genuine thumbs up. That line hit home, reminding me of how much Fiona loved him. He loved roses. Fiona sent him a bouquet every week, without fail. They video called daily. Fiona insisted it was just friends talking. Every New Year's, she'd fly to the US to keep him company, so he wouldn't be lonely. She never missed a holiday gift, from Chinese pastries for Qixi to custom mooncakes for mid-autumn, even limited sachets for the Dragon Boat Festival. Whenever I questioned it, she'd use her condescending tone. Jason, marriage ends, but the responsibility doesn't. We'll have ties forever, beyond love. But what woman would bear such a burden without love? Minutes later, a voice memo came in from Samuel. His tearful voice played through. Fiona, can we not divorce? You still love me. Why agree to an arranged marriage? Fiona sighed softly. Grandma gave the final word. She owes Jason's family a life and insisted it be repaid through our marriage. She hates unpaid debts. If not me, it would be another family member, and I'd be cut from the family tree forever. Do you like Jason? Samuel asked timidly. After a long pause, Fiona's voice was chillingly calm. No, I don't. Suddenly, a sharp pain gripped my chest. Honestly, I had my doubts. It seemed she wasn't really into me, but every time I asked her, she looked at me with that distant gaze. Jason, can't you feel how I treat you? Do I really need to say it out loud? Fine, listen clearly. You're my one true love. Looking back now, those words true love were probably just neutral terms for her, without any real feeling. Suddenly, my phone buzzed, and, as soon as I picked up, I heard Nina's excited yet anxious voice. Jason, the wedding preparations are moving along. We agreed to get married in a week. Don't you dare back out. Before I could respond, she added fiercely, if you back out, I'll move into your hospital and hire you as my personal doctor, keeping you so busy you'll never be able to marry anyone else. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Nina, you've been making tough threats since we were kids. When have you ever followed through? Jason, you've had a sharp tongue since day one. Just wait until we're married. You'll see how I handle you. Go ahead, try me. I will. We both hung up, but the next second I found myself laughing. Our families have been friends for generations. Nina's like a childhood friend. Every time we meet, we either banter or argue. When she confessed at 18, I thought it was a prank and turned her down. Who knew she was serious and kept pursuing me relentlessly after that? Until the day I got engaged to Fiona, she tearfully said, Jason, you'll never get someone as great as me. Yet yesterday, this stubborn lady secretly ran off to crash my wedding. Thinking about it, I couldn't help but smile. Maybe marrying this woman, who knows me inside and out and always makes me laugh, could actually be a good idea. The hospital room's door burst open. Fiona rushed in, eyes bloodshot, and grabbed my arm, dragging me out. Jason, how dare you report to Grandma? Now she wants to send Samuel abroad. I didn't report anything. I was dizzy from her pulling me, mechanically repeating, still denying it. She screamed, breath trembling with rage. What did Samuel ever do to you? Just because he's my ex-husband? That's a fact that will never change. I stared blankly at this stranger of a woman, voice hoarse. Fiona, yesterday he stood in the wedding venue in a groom's outfit. All those guests saw. Grandma is just secluded in a temple, not isolated from the world. Suddenly, Fiona stopped dead as if waking from a dream, clutching my wrist desperately. Jason, my mind was a mess just now. I'm sorry. Her voice trembled, and scalding tears fell onto my hand. Please talk to Grandma. Only you can persuade her to let Samuel stay. Seeing I wasn't responding, she actually knelt. We'll go get the license tomorrow. I'll agree to whatever you want. I looked at her shaking shoulders and burst into laughter. All right, I only have one condition. Say it. She looked up urgently. Cancel the engagement and never see each other again. Impossible. I can't lose you. She jumped up, voice hoarse like a trapped animal. But I can't just abandon Samuel either. I cut her off. Relax, I'll tell Grandma I dumped you. You're not to blame, all right? I forced myself to walk out, despite the dizziness. Fiona hurriedly caught up to support me. Jason, it's not what you think. Forget it, we'll get the license tomorrow so you can rest assured. Okay? She sped to the airport VIP lounge. Seeing us, Grandma waved kindly. Jason, this time we wronged you. Then she shot a cold glance at Samuel, slumped on the floor. We'll never accept him or his child. I took a deep breath. Grandma, I want to make this work for them. As soon as I finished, Samuel grabbed a wine bottle from the table and smashed it over his own head. Blood immediately flowed down his pale cheeks. Shoving Fiona aside, he struggled to kneel, offering me a mocking grin. Jason, if I die, I won't be in your way anymore. Fiona and I are innocent. I won't accept this baseless accusation. Before he finished, he collapsed heavily on the floor. Grandma, who was half a monk, couldn't stand the sight. With a cold huff, she swept her sleeves and left. In the VIP lounge, only Fiona's heart-wrenching cries remained. Jason, save him. You're a doctor. There must be something you can do. I steadied myself against the sofa, feeling icy inside. After all these years, she didn't even know I was a physician, not trained for such injuries. After calling for help, I turned to leave. Suddenly, Fiona grabbed a wine bottle and hurled it at me, her gaze terrifyingly cold. Jason, how can you be so heartless? If anything happens to Samuel, I'll never let you live it down. The bottle struck the back of my head, sending a wave of pain and warmth trickling down my neck. I felt dizzy and sank limply to the floor. In a daze, I saw a familiar figure burst in, delivering a punch that floored Fiona. You homewrecker. Getting to marry Jason is your luckiest break, and you don't even appreciate it. I'll teach you a lesson today. 2 days later, I woke up in the hospital. I saw Fiona sitting by the bed, bruises on her face. Seeing me awake, her dull eyes suddenly lit up. Jason, I misunderstood you. I thought you didn't want to save Samuel. I didn't want to respond. To her, I'd always be the villain. Seeing my silence, she leaned close eagerly. Jason, at least say something to me. Please? I impatiently shut my eyes. Get out. Fiona's face darkened instantly, but she stubbornly stayed put. Just then, the door opened, and Nina walked in carrying a big bouquet. Seeing Fiona, her pretty eyes narrowed dangerously. Oh, it's the homewrecker, she mocked. I just went out to buy flowers, and you snuck back in. Fiona sprang to her feet, her fists clenched and crackling. Watch your language, miss. I don't like the term homewrecker, and seeing my husband is none of your business. Nina put the flowers on the bedside table and sneered. Fiona, you were always a twice-married woman. Husband? You're kidding yourself. The guy in the groom's suit at the wedding wasn't my fiancé Jason. Fiancé? Fiona raised her voice and turned towards me. Jason, who is this wild woman? Explain yourself. Explain. I laughed coldly inside. I've mentioned breaking off the engagement countless times, and she never took it seriously. All the nasty things she did to me for the sake of Samuel even got physical. I've lost all hope with this woman. Explain to her? Why should I? I ignored her and weakly looked at Nina. Yo way. I'm feeling lightheaded. Nina immediately sat by the bed and naturally held my hand. Calvin said you've had 2 concussions in a few days, you need rest. Her thumb gently stroked the inside of my wrist, an action meant to soothe me. Fiona's eyes were icy. Let go of him. Why should I? Nina didn't even look up because you left him in the wedding car? Or because you almost got him killed for your ex-husband? Fiona's expression stiffened. It's all a misunderstanding. Just then, Calvin walked in. Fiona, your husband is awake. There are some things to discuss. Jason, I'll deal with you when I get back. Fiona tossed this out and left in a hurry. Once the hospital room door closed, Nina suddenly hugged me tightly, almost in tears. Jason, I would have stopped you from suffering for 5 years with someone like Fiona if you just told me. I've longed for this man for years, and why should this twice-married woman ruin him? I sighed and patted her back. Clearly, I'm the injured one, but now I'm comforting her. Yoey, I didn't cry. Why are you? Can't a girl feel heartbroken? She buried her face in my shoulder and wiped her tears away. I've always taught you to be tough with women, but you only seem to put that on me. I handed her a tissue. Can you wipe your tears with this? She grinned mischievously, snuggling closer. You wipe them for me. I reached to pinch her cheeks while she pulled at my hair in return. We always end up like this, leaving things in chaos. Just as I imagined whether daily arguments would be part of our married life. She suddenly pulled me in for a kiss, holding my nape. My face went beet red. Her ears turned red too. Yet she tried to act calm. No more fights from now on. Just give me kisses and I'll agree with you. Fiona stood frozen in place, ears buzzing. Fiona, your husband's external injuries are fine, but the child is already 5. A bit underdeveloped, needs hospital care. 5? She went to the States 3 years ago to find him. This child can't be theirs. Unable to fully take in what Calvin said, Fiona rushed back to the room. Samuel, she yelled, why lie to me? The man on the bed looked up, startled, his face still wet with tears. Fiona, I don't know what you mean. She suddenly felt nauseous. 3 years ago, he tricked her into bed with that pitiful look. Fiona took a deep breath, her chest heaving. You said you were just with her because she was terminally ill. There was nothing between you two. Samuel's lashes trembled violently, tears cascading down. Fiona. She forced me. I didn't want to. Fiona scoffed. She couldn't even get out of bed. How did she force you? Samuel, is anything you say true? Her hands shaking. She pointed to the child next to him, her voice hoarse. Did you know? Even without this child, I would have taken care of you forever. I said you're my ex-husband, my responsibility. But why did you lie to me? Why make me take on a motherly role? Cost me Jason. Samuel looked at her blankly. Losing Jason? You didn't even like him, why does it matter? Who said I didn't like him? She clenched her fists, nearly shouting. Fiona paused, surprised by her outburst. With panic in her heart, she softened her tone. Feelings can change. Maybe they never did. Initially, calling Jason her one true love was an excuse. He was easy to please, simple words made his day. Later, she genuinely said it, every time with growing sincerity. Jason was so wonderful, he deserved to be loved. Samuel looked heartbroken. Fiona. 1 month after we met, you insisted we get married and claimed you'd chosen me. Was that my imagination? You always talk about responsibility. Setting that aside, I ask, did you ever love me? The question made Fiona reflect. 3 years ago, Samuel was a struggling student on a full scholarship, full of optimism and dreams, untethered by people or rules, unlike Jason. Even when pressured into marriage with someone he didn't like, Jason never uttered a word against it. His demeanor was frustratingly docile, devoid of defiance and grit. Not wanting a life of submission, a tool for Granny's favors, She rebelled by marrying Samuel in the States within a month of meeting him. Fiona. Samuel raised his voice, choking. Why is it so hard to even answer this question? With his fingers digging into his palm, the answer was clear. Whether or not she loved him, Fiona's prolonged silence provided the answer. Maybe briefly. Fiona finally spoke, her voice scarily calm. 3 days into their marriage, she regretted everything. At a family event, she purposely slipped the secret, letting it reach the old lady's ears. Her so-called responsibility to Samuel over the years was a cover for guilt. Guilt pushed her to offer him a home, blindly siding with him, while Jason's heart bore the brunt of her neglect. Samuel suddenly knelt. Fiona, please don't say things in anger. Fiona turned around calmly and said, Samuel, go back to the US. Don't contact me anymore. Behind her, the sound of heart-wrenching sobbing could be heard, but her steps didn't falter. Growing up comes with a price. Thankfully, it's not too late to go back to Jason. Nina quickly arranged for me to transfer hospitals, claiming it was to keep unwanted visitors away. It was pretty obvious who she meant. But, to my surprise, Fiona showed up the very evening I got transferred. The door opened as Nina was spooning medicine to me from a bowl. Fiona froze in the doorway, her eyes fixed on us, lips moving slightly but not a word coming out. Nina and I exchanged glances, deciding together to ignore her. Fiona bit her lip, brought in some fruit and flowers, and said in a hoarse voice, Jason. Standing by the bed, her fingers clenched unconsciously. Can we talk alone? No. Nina interrupted coldly, you're not welcome here. Ignoring her hostility, Fiona abruptly dropped to her knees beside my bed. With her head down, she could barely look at me. Jason, I've been wrong all these years. Whether you believe me or not, I want you to know the truth. I looked down, my voice steady. I'm not interested. Her breath caught, but she kept talking quickly, probably in fear of being cut off again. Samuel's child is his ex-girlfriend's, not mine. 3 years ago when I married him, it was to rebel against my family. Later, I supported him out of guilt. When I said I loved you, I meant it. She was already sobbing uncontrollably. Jason, I've completely broken it off with Samuel. Can you forgive me? I closed my eyes, pressing a throbbing temple, feeling a severe headache coming on. Nina immediately grasped it, gently massaging my pressure points, her eyes shooting daggers at Fiona. A grown woman crying like this? What do you expect? My fiancé needs rest. If you're here to put on a sad show, take it elsewhere. Fiona acted as if she hadn't heard. Her dark eyes locked onto mine. Jason, if you come back with me, I'll change everything you don't like. Enough! I shouted, frustrated. I've said it 1,000,000 times. Our engagement is over. Why are you still hanging on? We're done. Get it? I grabbed the water cup and threw it at her, instantly drawing blood on her forehead. She, however, seemed immune to the pain and twisted a smile through her tears. Jason, if it makes you feel better, hit me all you want. The intense headache triggered a frenzy. I threw anything within reach, medicine bottles, fruit, vases at her. Fiona didn't dodge, letting the blood stain her white shirt collar. Nina gathered me into her arms, softly kissing my eyelids. Jason, be good. If you don't look, you won't be upset. Sleep, he will watch over you. Soon, the medication pulled me into a heavy slumber. Nina, with a stony expression, yanked Fiona up by her clothes and dragged her out of the room. As the door closed, she picked up a metal garbage can from the hall and swung it at Fiona's head. Fiona's vision blacked out as vegetable leaves and broth dripped from her hair. She wiped her face, attempting to fight back. Nina delivered a brutal side kick to her stomach. Fiona staggered, hitting the wall before collapsing heavily on the ground, coughing up a mouthful of blood. Wiping blood from her lips, Fiona yelled, "You maniac! You can't just hit people. Have you forgotten how to talk?" Nina looked down at her, suddenly smirking. "A 2-time loser like you, who beats up men, and you think you can reason with me? When Jason gets triggered into headaches just hearing your voice, did you ever think about whether you deserve to speak?" Fiona froze, her pupils widening. Who exactly are you? Nina grabbed her hair and leaned close. I'm the girl who grew up with him, who's been longing for him for years. I'm your nemesis, Fiona. Fiona suddenly burst out. Were you two getting cozy all this while? Nina slapped her to the ground again. You filthy mouth. Yesterday you had the nerve to call me a wild woman? If he hadn't been so fond of you, did you think I'd let you have him 5 years ago? Then she lowered her voice, a smirk playing on her lips. I should thank you for messing up. Now he's back where he belongs, with me. With that, Nina turned to walk away. Fiona got up to go after her, but 2 bodyguards in black pinned her in place. Fiona, the madam wants to see you. Kneeling before the statue, Fiona felt paralyzed. She feared her grandmother all her life but constantly did things that infuriated her. The sound of the wooden fish stopped abruptly. The old lady, clutching her prayer beads, spoke as if her voice were laced with ice. Jason's come to call off the engagement. I've owed a debt of gratitude I can't repay in this lifetime. She continued, 2 choices. Lifting her gaze, her eyes cut sharply. Either you get out of this family or remarry Samuel, and keep away from Jason for good. Without hesitation, Fiona kowtowed heavily. Grandma, I choose neither. The old lady's fingers tightened sharply, but her face remained calm. I'll choose for you then. You're expelled from the family. Fiona jerked her head up, staring at her grandmother's unyielding face, then bowed deeply. All right. At the moment her forehead hit the ground, she felt an unexpected sense of relief. She could leave the family but not Jason. As she stood, Samuel, hidden behind the prayer flags, called out to her. Fiona, you'd rather be cast out than choose me? I loved you so much. I did everything to get rid of Jason for you. Why can't you see anyone but him? Do I have to die for you to even blink? Without a glance at him, Fiona walked out of the hall. Samuel bitterly chuckled, suddenly rushing toward the statue. The grandmother signaled the guards to stop him. Don't desecrate this sacred place. Escort Samuel out. During my stay in the hospital, Fiona stopped by frequently. Sometimes she carried the latest in fashion, claiming she brought clean clothes for me. Other times, she'd have a thermos saying a chef made the porridge just for my stomach. Each time, she'd find Nina waiting, blocking her from my room with a cold stare. In the years we were together, she never cared about the little things. She couldn't even remember my birthday, but she knew Samuel had a sensitive stomach and couldn't handle spicy food. Suddenly, I burst out laughing. Nina looked up while sorting the discharge papers, a bit puzzled. I was laughing so hard, holding my stomach and rolling on the bed. Fiona says I'm the love of her life. You are the love of my life. That's hilarious, I said. Nina suddenly dropped the folder and pinned me to the hospital bed, narrowing her eyes. Jason, it's fine to think about women, but not about that twice-divorced fool. I stopped laughing and seriously asked her, really, it's okay to think about other women? She playfully pinched my earlobe. In your dreams. I rolled my eyes, pinched her cheeks, and said, Nina, surely it's okay to only think about you? She suddenly sprung up, the tips of her ears turning red. Jason, you've become quite the charmer, making women happy now. I picked up a pillow and threw it at her. She caught it steadily, smiling like a cat that got the cream. You can only charm me. I'm a sucker for it. On our wedding day, I saw Fiona in the last row of the guest seats. She sat quietly in a corner, looking much thinner and extraordinarily haggard. As my father-in-law walked Nina towards me, Fiona suddenly rushed onto the stage and blocked my path. Jason, come with me. She reached out to grab me, quickly dodged. Fiona, you left me at the church last time, and now you're ruining this. What did I ever do to you? She shook her head frantically, her voice shaking. It's not that. I refused to remarry Samuel and got kicked out. I only have you now, Jason. But I don't want you either, I said with a cold laugh. I'm done with you, sick of you. Please leave my life. That seemed to sting her. She staggered back, mouth slightly open but unable to say a word. I slowly walked over, my fingers cracking. Nina gently held me back, not wanting the wedding ruined. My father-in-law spoke up with a stern face. Fiona, Do I need to have another talk with your grandmother? Fiona's face went pale instantly. She knew if the old lady was disturbed again, the consequences would be much worse than being thrown out. She looked at me miserably, barely audible. Jason, can we really not go back? I didn't answer. I just held Nina's hand tightly and walked towards the wedding stage without looking back. Fiona stood in silence for a long time under the disdainful eyes of the guests, eventually walking out defeated. No one noticed Samuel lurking outside the hall. He got to the parking lot first. When Fiona appeared in a daze, he drove straight at her without hesitation. He used the wedding car Fiona had excitedly driven to pick him up at the airport that day. Before dying, he got out of the car and threw himself into her arms, saying, "Fiona, you know, what Samuel wants, he never lets go of, not even in death." The news came as Nina and I were playfully arguing. We were undecided about our honeymoon destination. So it escalated to me tugging her ear and her pulling on my tie until I suddenly leaned in for a quick peck on her lips. Nina instantly took charge, deepening the kiss. "Jason, you've really got me wrapped around your little finger for life." I wrapped my arms around her waist. "Isn't that a good thing?" She nodded immediately. "It's very good."